Abstract Transmissions.
And hello. Thank you, Stephen Howland, for coming on the show today. We usually do some sort of an introduction, but the first couple episodes, we fucking glossed right over it entirely. So the fact that we even remembered to do the introduction at the beginning of this is a win for me. So
I only visit the top podcasts, so.
Yeah, not yet. No, we're far from it. We've got like 262 listeners was the last time I checked, or two. I don't remember what it was. So that was always it was like right around 260. But it's also like we've got like 4 or 5 people in like New Zealand. So I think it's just because we're AB, like we're early on, abstract AB is like really easy early on. And so if somebody starts looking for us or looking through podcasts, I imagine we're going to pop up sooner than some other ones just because it's A.
But you got a lot of repeaters, like people that are kind of watching it.
Yeah. A lot of stuff it's constantly listening, lots of downloads. Like we have some episodes that are actually continuously popular, not on YouTube yet, but that's a new platform for us since we started the Zoom thing. That's been a weird adaptation, I guess, of this. Also, it's kind of weird not having Justin co-host with for the episodes. So, but I mean, it's all about kind of rolling with the punches, right? Especially nowadays.
That's how you gotta get there.
Yeah. So about your job, we were just kind of discussing it before we got on, because I mean that's part of the thing that we really try to focus on is just talk to as many different people from as many walks of life as possible, and I think that a lot of times it just gives a good perspective on where everybody's kind of sitting at in life right now, especially with COVID. It's impacted everybody differently, and Jesus, I mean, some people it's like entirely disrupted what they were doing for work, and other people it's like my friend, he's a musician, like touring musician, like his whole life is upside down now. It's fucking crazy, bananas.
Yeah,
but yeah. So you're in leasing?
Yes, I'm in leasing. I work for a bank, so luckily I'm one of the. And it's funny. I don't think I've seen a statistic on it, how many Americans have been able to work from home, but I'm lucky enough to be one of those that's been able to work from home the entire time during this.
That's huge.
I would say most of the time I love it. Working from home. Sometimes it does get a little stir crazy. I mean, I love my family and all that, but I'm used to going into a place where the bank I worked at had like 250, maybe 300 individuals. Were like a call center. Probably knew most of them. So there's definitely an aspect of like where you're like, wow, what a kind of miss a little bit of that sort of repertoire, that day to day. But yeah, I do leasing for small businesses. Pretty much if you were a business that was looking to get a computer, if you came to my bank, possibly I would talk to you. I'd be the one to talk to you, and I'd discuss your different lease options and rates, and I get you your contract out. And it's nothing overly complicated in terms of what I do on a day to day, but it can be kind of interesting. I look at I get to work with a lot of different companies.
Like business, like have you seen like anything like get busier? Have you seen a decrease? Not well, unless you can't go into that, obviously it's business, intricacies.
No, and I think it'd be safe to say, like, because we are a publicly traded company anyway, so you can look at the quarterlies, but
right,
like every company, we saw a hit with COVID, right? We saw things decrease, but I think the small business market, I think small businesses have not been affected as hard as initially kind of feared. And so it's not like the economy is all the way back, but have seen a rebound definitely in the economy, and I think what I do definitely what I've been seeing definitely reflects that. And if we're gonna out of 200 people, if we get a message out there, we definitely need to pass another stimulus package.
Yeah.
That's a definite must.
Serious.
If we want to
So many
continue
people just
on the track.
Yeah, I mean, that's economic resources in the hands of people, right? I mean, that's kind of the problem right now. Companies aren't going to move the needle if people can't buy their shit.
Yeah, I mean,
period.
Just a myriad of different. I mean, you still have some places to shut down. There's some places that just aren't going to bounce back. I don't think this isn't coming from my banking perspective, but just taking a look at something like airlines. Like how long is it going to be before like Bank of America does a lot of I don't work for Bank of America, but I'm using it as an example. How long is it going to be before they do like a conference, right? That's where airlines made their money. These big business conferences, going to Vegas, going to Atlanta, going to Chicago, and these conferences is where a lot of these hotels made their money. Were these conferences? So, there's some areas that just are not going to come back for a while.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that there's a lot of businesses that like, it's funny, Yang was talking about like AI impact is like pandemic just accelerated any of those job markets that were just on the slow decline, just had them just further drop off. And then obviously, like you said, some things are going to bounce back, but some things won't. Like the restaurant industry is struggling like a motherfucker. I can't imagine how that's going to turn out.
I do think they'll bounce back. I think they'll bounce back. I think people will do the things they like to do eventually. You're already starting to see it. People, I mean, they found creative ways. Restaurants will go out of business. Restaurants will start up. That's how the restaurant business goes. The thing about restaurants is that it's a low barrier of entry, right? So in terms of cost of starting a business, it's probably one of the lowest businesses to start as a restaurant.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a whole slew of people, not to sound glib about it, but you're going to have a slew of people lose their restaurants, but you'll have restaurants fill those voids
because the market will adapt. I mean, that's the good and bad thing about free market economics is that it will fix itself inevitably as long as people take their hands out of it, leave it the fuck alone.
As long as people still want to go out to eat, and I think people will still want to go out to eat. There's some things, movie theaters. So
yeah, that's a tough one. Movie theaters are on a decline as it was, right? Now people are like, I can watch this shit at home, Disney Plus. Like I literally bought a projector. Yeah, right. I don't want to get COVID in a movie theater watching Tenet. However, I did watch that movie in the theater because I wanted to see it. So it was pretty good. It was fucking mind-blowing, dude. Unbelievable. I mean, it really is one of those things that either you're going to like it or you're going to hate it. For sure. There's no like in between with that movie. Like some people either think it's too pretentious or people take it entirely, too seriously,
Have you talked about your going to the movie theater on the podcast yet?
I haven't. No, not at all. Actually,
no. I mean, what was that experience like? Were there other people in there, or was it just like you?
No one. It was just me and my buddy Austin. That was it. Literally just us in that theater, and it was a brand new movie. Like I was just like, this was on opening weekend, Friday. Like, of course, it was 5. It was right before the matinee, but still. Opening weekend, and there was just me and one other dude. Oh man, that's bad news for the movie industry.
Yeah, did you have to wear the mask the entire time?
Oh yeah, you're supposed to. And I'm like, how the fuck am I supposed to eat popcorn through the mask? No, obviously, like they're like, just put it back on after. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna remember to do that. Like, and of course I'm gonna remember because the guys are like watching you from the corner. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll tell you what though. I know we've been talking a lot about COVID. I'm sure people are sick of hearing it on podcasts, but I personally I don't think it's been all bad. Like I'm a guy that loves a good excuse, right?
Hmm.
And COVID has just given me just the ultimate good excuse of all time, right?
Yeah,
Like it
for
was
sure.
like, you know,
You and
I
everybody
used to
else, man.
yeah, I used to like not do things and I had bad excuses for it. I'd like not go to the gym and be like, oh, I was busy. You know, now I can not go to the gym and just be like, well, you know, COVID,
COVID.
you know, you know,
Yeah,
COVID. But hey,
COVID, man.
you know, people could call me. They could say, hey, you want to come over? And just be like, look, COVID, right?
COVID, man.
We can't do that.
That's awesome. Hey, you guys want to play the show? I'm like, you know,
Yeah,
COVID.
yeah.
No, we
We're
just did
living in
one
a COVID era,
recently.
but
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. We just played a show recently. It was kind of like the movie theater scenario. Nobody there. No, I'm just kidding. It actually turned out pretty well. There was a ton of people there, but because people are anxious for, you know, live music. So I was really like,
yeah,
oh, this is cool. But at the same time, everybody's like, oh, fuck. It was like this real hippie place. And like, you know, to
uh,
each their own. I really, and, you know, not talk, you know, talking trash about the venue is good. I mean, they really got to work about their fucking cable management on stage, but
mm,
they were great, very welcoming, and they had a ton of potential as a venue. But the part that lost me is when like my bassist is, you know, is handicapped. I'm, you know, disabled. Like he's, you know, immunocompromised. I'm not, you know, but they were just kind of like, oh, fuck the mask thing. Nobody's. I'm just kind of like, nah, we'll stay over near
yeah.
the equipment with the masks. Like I, not that our masks are necessarily going to protect us, you know, but and that's the thing. At one
Right,
point I was just not even wearing them because it's like unless everybody's wearing them, there's no benefit there. You know what I mean? Like
right.
maybe a little bit, but the only benefit is
As
expel,
if
really,
every
you know.
yeah. No, yeah, and I'm no
So
anti-masker.
that's
You know,
fun.
each I went to Disney World actually.
Oh
Speaking
man,
of
what was
weird
that
things to
like?
do while COVID, it was actually pretty busy. And I tell people
Save some
one
money
of the
though,
weird.
because
I saved a lot of money.
sorry to
I
interrupt you
got
there. I was
no.
gonna say,
I saved a lot of money on that trip. Three of us, you know, the three of us flew round trip to Disney for like $500. We stayed in a hotel that normally
that's
would have cost
awesome.
4,500. Yeah, normally would have cost 4,500. It cost $1,100,
Oh
and then
man,
the tickets were like were about as cheap as Disney tickets ever get.
oh
So it was
dude.
yeah, yeah.
That
It
is
was
awesome. That is
yeah.
so phenomenal. It's
it
funny
was
because
it was you know
Kayla and I talked about it a few times, and like we looked the prices, and I was just like, "Oh my god, that's never gonna happen!" Like, but
yeah,
that's affordable. Like, that's amazing for all you guys to go down there. Like, that is awesome. Like,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
amazing.
It
Go
was a good time,
COVID,
and
kind of.
yeah, right.
Except for like all the
I
people
mean,
dying.
well,
Yeah, I know, but seriously though, I'm an asshole. Like I seriously am all about taking advantage of that discount at fucking Disney. Take my fucking kid there for sure.
well, you know, it's funny, yeah, and when I did, and I'll when I got the tickets for it, I got them in like April, right? When I was convinced that COVID would be gone by like July, right? The summer heat blast
Yeah,
COVID out of the sky, right?
yeah,
And then it didn't happen that way, and I was like, oh boy, but you know, it worked out. You know,
yeah.
you wear the mask. That I brought it up because you wear the mask down there like 24/7 practically. The only time you take it off is when you're sitting to eat and when you're in your hotel room. Anywhere
Yeah.
else, you're wearing the mask,
Right,
and
right.
you get used to it. You do get used to it. Um,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that there's a certain amount of like adapting that we're not used to that the rest of the world kind of had to get used to. Like we're fairly sheltered from pandemics because we have like clean water like all the
mm,
time, you know, and not
yeah,
saying that that's, you know, something
yeah,
specific to
and
just the United States, but like there's a
we
lot of
don't have
places
wet
that's
markets.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, the closest thing we have to that is Boston Quincy Market, which is,
Yeah,
you know, still like they push the edge a lot of times because there's a lot of like foreign markets there. But
yeah,
yeah, even that isn't compared to the rest of the rest of the world, the naturalized world, still allows for a lot, and I think that accommodates a lot of pandemics. I mean, I who knows if this thing came out of a lab or not. Like, I'm not, on the conspiracy wagon at all, but there is definitely some solid stuff that make me think that the Chinese Communist Party might have covered up something like that. They'd have
The,
no reason to let us think otherwise.
my dad's convinced of that. Um,
Yeah,
and I just have refused to even research it. You know what?
yeah,
I'll wait till the whole thing blows over and see if I can. By blow over, I mean, like, we get a vaccine and whatnot. But and then I'll
yeah.
see. Once let the fire
Who's
burn, and
responsible
then
for it later? Yeah,
and then we'll see if it was arson or not.
yeah.
Put the fire
Right,
out.
right.
Put the
First,
fire out. Then we'll
yeah.
find out if it was arson.
No, you're right. I mean, that should be the priority too, because I think that everybody's like quick to jump on the blame China thing, and I do think it's the responsibility of the Chinese Communist Party that let it get to that point, or maybe the plan. Who knows? Because a pandemic would have definitely crippled us regardless, and they knew it.
Yeah.
So who
Yeah.
knows? But my theory is just that they could have been more responsible about it, regardless of whether they caused it or not.
Yeah. Well, they definitely could have been more responsible. There definitely was a cover up going on. They did not want people knowing. I think they thought they could handle it, keep it in house, and obviously they couldn't. And unfortunately,
Right.
we were set up kind of perfectly to be the host for this type of pandemic, right? It transmits easily. You look at the places where it hit big first, big metropolitan areas where people do business, right? We do a lot of business out of
Right.
China, more business than, I was getting real tired. People would like compare us to like New Zealand. I'm like, New Zealand doesn't do business with China like we do business. We had
No.
hundreds of business people coming in and out of China every single day.
It's not even comparable, really, anywhere in the rest of the world. I mean, we do the most business with China, I would imagine, directly, being too heavily capitalist, centered economies.
And it looks like from the things that I've watched and read, that the strain we got actually came from Italy. And what made this strain, based on what I sourced this from, what made this strain particularly deadly, right? Because these coronaviruses mutate, is that when it got to Europe, it mutated and it actually became less deadly as a virus, which in a way kind of makes it more deadly, because the longer it lives in the host, the more people that host gets in contact with, and thus spreads it, right? So if it doesn't kill someone right away, they're going to get in contact with more people with susceptibilities. And so the virus mutated to live. That was the problem when you call it problem, right? Like if you're Ebola, it's a problem for you. If you're Ebola, you want to infect as many people as possible. Well, you killed your host too quickly, right? The people that got it died. They showed symptoms too fast. They died too fast. And that was seemingly what was happening originally over in China. And then by the time it made its way to Italy, it started to mutate. And now it's become this thing where it can take up to 2 weeks for it to actually even show symptoms. And that's what's made this virus particularly deadly, is its sort of undeadliness, right? And it almost kind of waits to find people that it can kill.
Right. And that's really unfortunate too, because on top of that, the super spreadability of it, just like, because it doesn't stay on surfaces long, but it seems like it's very easily spread, like that people easily contracting it, and
it's
that's
very
still
catchy.
So I mean, that makes you think, like, they still don't know if it's air transmissible. They said that it's air transmissible through droplets, but they don't know it could be aerosolized, like aerosolized.
Yeah, they don't know
droplets
how long
it
hangs up in there. Yeah.
In the air.
They don't know, like, if you go out and cough, if it's out there for an hour or for 5 minutes, seconds. They're not exactly.
And they haven't been able to figure it out yet, because they haven't been able to narrow it down. I think that's very problematic when it comes to the long term. Like, how are we going to solve the problem, especially where we have, like, I think the problem with the United States is just we're terrible at fucking cleaning our hands and just basic shit. You know what I mean? Like, we're just, and then they're like, put a mask on. Oh, fuck that. Change. I haven't changed my pants for a fucking week and a half. You know what I mean? Like
You know,
people are pretty fucking gnarly in some places, man, and they have no business caring about, wearing a mask. They don't care. There's no,
yeah, and and if
their family members.
the background as to kind of why I was coming on here is that I'm a registered Republican. I'm a Trump supporter, and but I find your point of view very interesting, and I thought it might be interesting for us to discuss some of the different sides of things. And I did so, kind of what you're talking about there, in terms of how do we solve this. I actually think, I know it's an unpopular opinion right now, but I think I would grade us at about a B plus for who we are as a country, for our size, our dense populations, for, I would grade us at about a B plus. And I think we are turning a corner. And the reason I say that is because when you look at what could have happened, right? It could have been, there's nothing, like 2 million or whatever. But so they did the shutdown. But was it a shutdown, right? What would have really taken to kill the virus? It was a shutdown for people that worked in the restaurant industry, right? It was a shutdown for me. I had to work from home. But it wasn't a shutdown if you worked at a meat packing plant. It wasn't a shutdown if you were a farmer.
Should have been.
It wasn't a shutdown if you were working at the grocery store, Walmart, Home Depot. So there were tons of industries shut down, but the amount of necessary industries, if you're driving ambulances, if you're a doctor, so not that this is anything I would advocate. Obviously, the quickest way to kill the virus would have been to lock everybody in the house for 2 weeks and then go pull out the dead, right? Just see who survived after 2 weeks. That would have been.
That's not realistic.
That's not realistic, right? So, and so the second option is, okay, we do nothing, let it run rampant, and eventually, again, you just kind of clear out the dead, and people will build immunities, that herd immunity aspect. And so we found this sort of middle path when we did an initial shutdown. We tried to we flatten the curve, make sure hospitals could handle the incoming traffic, which they can. Some hospitals have been strained, but there have been areas and hospitals strained, but nothing broken. We made sure that we could, we used the time to ramp up PPE. We used the time to ramp up testing. We used the time to ramp up all these necessities and to put together some really killer, I guess that's a bad term of phrase, but really awesome therapeutics to help stem the tide of the virus. And so, I would give us a B plus. It's not an A minus because you're right. If we all, an A plus would be, we all masked up, we all washed our hands every so often. We probably never did open the restaurants back up. We probably did open those back up a little early. And, again, I'm not Dr. Fauci, but just from a layman's perspective, I feel like we've done an all right job. I know it's tough to say with 200,000 dead, but given the circumstances we had.
There is definitely some things that you have to factor in, given our economy and, some of the, very sparsely, like, I'm not going to say sparsely populated, but there's certain like the way the United States is populated in concentrated areas, mostly near the coastlines, right? If you really look at it, there's
I think it's
a lot of like go ahead.
No, I was going to add on to your point. I think the statistic is 70% of the population lives in the Eastern time zone, the U.S. population.
I didn't know that. That's fascinating. So that would make sense that the rest still kind of following along the lines the the coastlines, which is going to be port areas, a lot of airports and all that stuff. So it makes sense that,
Oh,
it impacted us the way it did. What could have been managed better, what did need to happen was like, it's so weird because before this even happened, I was still at Barron's at the time, and I was reading when I was at this time about the Trump getting rid of the pandemic control thing with the CDC. I
okay.
just feel like
Over in China,
that would have
right?
been what's that?
You're talking about what he had done. I think it was like the year previously where he disbanded something in China, some
Yeah.
sort of yeah,
Oh
yeah.
no. This was just it was a pandemic response team that was. I'll try to send you the link. I'll try to put
Okay.
it in the bottom of the description thing too. But there was a pandemic response team that was existed during the Obama era or whatever, that was put together by the Obama team specifically for something like this, that Trump went in and basically, obviously he doesn't like Obama. So there's a lot of things that he just had specifically an agenda to get rid of. Personally, not an Obama person myself, but whatever it may be, he got rid of that pandemic response team in the CDC. Um, it would have been incredibly helpful for us to have that. It was put in place specifically for something like this, and then it's just gone. So how many
I
lives
don't know
could have
much.
been saved,
Yeah,
specifically because of that? And just other scenarios where I just feel like his need to project the America's okay thing far longer than it needed to be cost more people their lives than it should have. At the same time, I do think there are some reasonable expectations, um, from the healthcare community and whatnot, to kind of give them a little bit of slack in that aspect. That but the stockpiles thing is bullshit completely. I know that there was some shit there that should have been, but no, that's just totally like a garbage excuse, and that's my thing, is like, don't make excuses, own it, just move forward with it. um because he hasn't done everything wrong. They haven't done everything wrong for the pandemic thing. I think that the cutting off travel to China thing was super important, and cutting off travel to a good better part of the rest of the world, trying to shut us down as much as they could. Realistically, you couldn't completely shut us down, so some things that just couldn't be controlled. But I just feel
yeah,
like there's part of preparing yourself against anything is planning, and going backwards from that, not necessarily planning, but like moving away from planning, like getting rid of something there to protect against something like this, almost kind of to its own detriment in a way. But I do think that it's important to be kind of a realist. Like, so I'm on the other side of it, right? I'm voting for Biden. Not because I like him. Fucking far be it for me to like the guy at all.
are you
This is the
voting
first
for him
time
for
I've ever.
president or for senator?
Yeah. Who? Yeah. No, yeah, I genuinely, I've never voted for a major party candidate ever. I've always voted third party candidate.
Yeah,
So, I mean, even in the primaries, I voted, either Republican or Democrat. Like, I voted for Ron Paul. I wrote him in during the main election, and then, you know, my first person I ever voted for was Nader, uh, and then Gary Johnson twice. Yeah, now I'm voting for Biden of all fucking people. So
yeah,
I really, really have the opposition to try. I don't think that it's beneficial that he stays in office for another 4 years, and not because I'm completely against, like, there's a lot of things, like the gun thing is something that I'm not on the side of Democrats for at all. Very against most of the gun control perspectives that the Democrats have, but um, I think that the pendulum, the bipartisan pendulum must swing, as they say, and it kind of has to go back the other way, because right now things are just too fucking chaotic, and it'll just swing that way and go back the other way. It's how it goes.
Yeah,
Forth,
and
and
if Trump loses, I think that will be the story. Is it's just too much chaos. Like when you were talking earlier, now the unit that he got rid of, I don't know a lot about it. I do remember hearing about that, and they said it was a reorganization. I don't know a lot about that, but I will say, in terms of the other point about messaging, that's always been the big deal, right? It's like if you look at our pandemic response, if you look at the criticism of the pandemic response, very little of it has been about substance, right? Like they usually go back to testing, but I think any objective person looking at testing will tell you that, I mean, he's not, physically making the tests in this back room. I don't think anybody's impeding
right.
the amount of tests going out there. I think it's a ridiculous claim. We were a little slow
it would
to
benefit him to have a test sooner. Like,
it
would only benefit him to make this all come out in his favor. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know why they would say, "Oh, he's costing people's like some evil, like, whoa, let me kill people." No, I think it would only benefit him to do a better job at it.
Right, and so I mean, but most of the arguments have been about messaging. Oh, why haven't you been, he'll say, I'm for masks, I just don't wear them all the time. And they'll say, like, well, why haven't you been more hardline about it? Why won't you be more clear here? Why are you stoking the fire over here? So it's always been about this sort of chaos that he creates. And I think it's how he ran his businesses. And I think that's how he's run this administration, is a very, he's a pragmatic guy. I think he's more pragmatic than principled. And he's a fighter, and this is his style. And so it's always been, I didn't vote for him. I didn't vote for him in the primaries originally when he was running against like Jeb and Kasich and all those. I thought, I was one of those guys. He's got no chance. But after 4 years of him, I would love it if someone took his Twitter away.
That's fucking
been a fan of that.
Yeah.
It seems to work for him. I know plenty of people on my side that love it, that really feel like it's him getting to the people, the information. I go, well, is he though? Because he does a lot of like stupid retweets. He's more of a troll on Twitter than anything. The information really comes from his press room with Haley McEnany, and that's where the real information comes from.
Right.
But
I mean, he's putting together people to do the work that, and I think that perspective that, I mean, isn't far off. A lot of it just inflames people, and for the good, for the bad. I mean, it attracts attention. That's for sure. Media ratings with Trump are through the roof. The media loves him in a lot of ways, whether they say they don't or they do. Love it. They feed off of it.
That's what Trump said. That's what Trump says, right? He goes like, "You guys should be voting for me. Like, your ratings are going to go way down if I leave office."
Right.
And
he's a funny guy. I'll give him that.
He's a funny guy.
He is a funny guy, and I think that's part of what got him there, is the charisma and the just fucking ridiculousness on the Republican stage. Because look, I trash on him a lot. I'm not a big fan of him from the other perspective, but when it came to beating out the contestants and beating out Hillary, he did it without blinking an eye. It was just like, it was nothing. I don't think it's going to work out in his favor this time. I think that really looked bad for him on the debate. But I didn't see his town hall tonight, so I have no idea how that went.
I did. Favor, I watched it. I watched it. Did it go in his favor? I think it was fine. Savannah Guthrie was was badgering the witness, if you will.
She it was NBC though, right? It's a major media company.
She came out the door hot, and she ended up debating him for it was interesting because it was a town hall. Like I watched I'm not sure which town halls you've watched, but I watched the town hall he did with George Stephanopoulos, and some people criticize Stephanopoulos, and I think it's obvious that he doesn't like Trump. I think some of his lines were out of line, but I thought overall as a town hall, I thought Trump did pretty well. I thought he answered the questions pretty well, and I thought he did good in a fairly hostile situation.
Yeah.
This one, the audience was better. They did. I think NBC took a concerted effort to find people on the fence, which is hard to do. But I think they found people who, if they weren't at least on the fence, weren't viscerally anti-Trump. Right? They found when he did his first town hall at ABC, they would have people they'd say like, this guy's on the fence. He'd just be like, he's like, I'd never vote for you. He's just like, whoa, what is he on the fence about?
He's just not like, on the fence at all. He's definitely not going to vote.
They're like, oh, this guy's on the fence here. He says he's an independent voter and he's on the fence, and he like gets on the mic. This was the pastor, and he gets on the mic. He's like, did you know that "Make America Great Again" is a racist saying? It's like, this guy's considering Trump. This is someone giving a consideration.
He's not considering anything. Did you know that what your slogan is racist? Like, did you know that I'm insulting you and I'm right and you have to agree with it? That's not a good way to start any conversation. That's funny.
But Savannah Guthrie gets on tonight, and she for the first 15 minutes, 10 minutes. Did nothing but like yell at him. Like they just yelled a little bit back and forth. Like not yell like in the first.
So debate, it wasn't that she was like throwing, facts at him and he was curving them because he doesn't like, reality. But but look, I you got to admit there's some major cognitive dissonance. Like he genuinely disconnects himself from reality. I mean, I know you're a logical person. We work together for that you got to concede at least that little bit that he doesn't always like line up with reality.
And they talk a lot about his. So I said he wasn't a philosophical person earlier, or that he doesn't have. They do talk a lot about a philosophy he's had since I think he was like a kid. I think since he, by kid I mean like his 20s, like when he started in becoming a businessman, and that was this sort of positive thinking mantra, right? If you think it will happen. It was a pretty popular like 70s, 80s sort of philosophy, like keep thinking positive, right? Keep looking at the positive. And I think for him now, I think there's two parts to it. Part one, I think that philosophy comes into play a lot. I think a lot of times he'll try to really push that he does not like to really dwell on something he did wrong or something that went wrong. He doesn't dwell on that a lot. The negatives. Part two is he's a spin doctor. He's all about spinning, right? Which isn't he's a non-political guy that he's
using politics to his advantage. So that's true.
There are things like when they come out and he says when he started his administration, they say that he had the largest, the crowd for the inaugural crowd of all time, right? That was ridiculous. I don't know why he did it. I don't think he believed it. Now, when you said divorce yourself from reality, I don't think he believed it. I think he was trying to fight. He saw that there was a narrative out there about how little the crowd was. It was a rainy day. Certainly right. He's a divisive person. It was not a large crowd that particular day and for inauguration. And so I think he was trying to spin the narrative and say, no, it was the largest crowd. Just throw it out there. See if it sticks. Right.
Yeah.
Not a great thing that,
I think you're right, though. I mean, I think that a lot of it is he's, very tries to have the positive outlook, and that if you believe it, it will attract it to you. Everything is, he's like he read the Secret there. That was what was it? You remember what that thing was in the late 90s or something?
That was the the vision boards.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, not saying that that's, I don't know. Maybe he's familiar with it. Maybe it's not, but maybe he's just, that's his thing. He's just positivity, and he doesn't want to hear the negative. And if he does, it disrupts his things. Thrown off my fucking balance, fuck off, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah. I think
Which
there's a
I
bit
could
of
get
that at
that,
play.
you know. But
And
there's that the thing that concerns me is like he's running the country, and I think that those blind spots and inability to think around corners could cost him. Well, I think it's going to cost him the election, but I think that it could cost us. But I mean, to be fair, everybody has their blind spots too. So I don't think that his has been messaging to his own people. I think messaging on this election, he's really screwed that up now, because now he's putting out these really expensive ads for towards the elderly about how he didn't, you know, how everything he did really well with COVID, and a picture of him wearing a mask, which is like not usually the thing that he's doing, but it's like targeted specifically towards like the older crowd, which I think is like he's losing a lot of that vote, either because they died, it's terrible to say, but it's true, or because they're losing their faith in his ability to you know, keep them safe, or whatever the
well,
media is spinning
right.
that
And if
for.
you're, yeah,
I do think that it's a
I
media
imagine,
spin there too.
I imagine if you have the memory to go back and possibly remember, you know, statesmen like JFK, Nixon before the Watergate, Ronald Reagan. You know, I don't have a memory of those presidents. I've got
Yeah.
kind of the millennials like myself are going to have kind of a really screwed up, I think, idea of presidency, because mine starts really with Monica Lewinsky, right? I mean, I remember Herbert Walker, you know, but I was like 4, right? Like I was not watching presidential debates, nor was I concerned about policy. I remembered him best, I think, in like a Simpsons episode, right? So, but you know, you know, someone like me, born like '87, you know, you started getting into politics around, you know, the Monica Lewinsky scandal, and then you had the contentious, you know, 8 years that were the Bush administration. Um, and I mean, it's really just been a roller we've had, you know, and maybe people just describe it in rose-colored glasses. I don't know, but you know, since the Reagan eras and the, you know, the Eisenhowers, and the part of it is the media is different today, obviously, but
Yeah,
and that's
for
what's
sure.
given us a Trump. And so, you know, you're talking about his election
That's
and
true.
his messaging. I'm going to do an absolute cop out, and I'm just going to say I'm going to reserve my judgment until I see whether he wins or loses, because
Yeah,
at this point in 2016, I would have told you that like he's run a horrible campaign. This has been a disaster, one disaster after the next, and
see,
then
I
he
was
ended
on
up.
the other side of it. I actually thought he ran a horrible campaign, because I thought he was an asshole personally, but my thing was like he did really well. He in the primary knocked down each one of them like clay pigeons up there, and he until he was the only one standing. Like he did that and he didn't even blink. Like it was nothing to him. Like
Yeah,
he had his eyes on the prize because there was no other option. And I think that people like that usually are unbeatable, because I can relate to that. There's a lot of things I've been able to do in my life because there's just no other option. I'm unwilling to give up on what I want to do until I get to where I want to be. And I think that there's a lot of respect for that. So I can see that. But I think that is manifesting itself as fear. I think he's nervous, and the more nervous he becomes, the more uncertain he becomes, and the more he is unable to manifest this change. I think it worked really well in 2016 because it was an unknown. It was a a wild
right. Well,
card,
and
and
I think
he did
there's,
really well in the primary, and then
yeah,
just slaughtered Hillary. Like in the debates, slaughtered Hillary. Maybe not in the voting, but in the debates, like she lost those debates.
yeah,
Lost.
and but the media didn't call it that way originally.
Oh, of course they didn't. They didn't want it to look that way.
So, and I will
I voted
say
for Gary Johnson that election because I was like, fuck this noise. You guys are both crazy. I'm fucking out. And I kind of feel bad about it in a way, but
I do think that the media has been tougher on him this time. Unfair. I think the media has been, quite frankly, unfair to him. I mean,
yeah, I do think that they have been unfair to him, but they've been unfair to him like they've been unfair to anybody else in the media. Like, he is that kind of like, he's fun to hate, so they're going to amplify that. If he was fun to love like the Obamas, they would have amplified that. It's just whatever gets the ratings going. If he was likable, he's not going to make ratings. So of course the media is going to, like, that's what got ratings with Obama. But what gets ratings with Trump is he's a fucking asshole, and you know, like, everything that they have amplified. I don't think that they've given him an unfair shake. They've just put a magnifying glass on who he is, and that doesn't look the greatest to everybody. But they also, I mean, are very careful at how they put things out to cater to their own accord, because they're biased by being left or right-wing news media.
I would call it an unfair shake. I mean, how many headlines? God, I should have like clipped this for tonight's thing. How many headlines they did? Like someone like counted up how many headlines they ran that said, "If Trump did this." Major newspapers, people like the New York Times, people like CNN. If Trump did this, anonymous sources, right? Just articles, the Atlantic article, right, that came out and said that Trump said these horrible things about the military. Debunked, right? Like almost immediately was debunked. They never should have ran it, right? Because already the initial facts, the initial story from these 4 anonymous sources that he canceled the trip to the graveyard because he was afraid to get his hair wet was already like John Bolton had already written about that day in his book. John Bolton, who wrote a book to defame Trump, right? Make money, defame Trump, has no reason to defend him in this book.
I don't think it was to defame him. Did you read that book? I read that book.
I didn't read it. I read the
and
excerpts.
I don't think it was to defame him. I do think that he was to tell his perspective, but I don't think it was to defame him. Just my perspective.
But certainly not. He certainly wasn't looking to help Trump in the book.
That's true.
And so the first part of these 4 anonymous sources stories already debunked inside of John Bolton's book, where he actually went into great detail why they canceled going to the graveyard that day. And so then the second part where he says he just out of nowhere, and then you also got to think, like, the only people I think really believe this article believe Trump is a maniac, right? Because why on earth out of nowhere would he just in front of people just call like World War I, dead Americans losers? Like what? Like Trump does a lot of things, but they're usually in his own mind to benefit himself.
John McCain, I mean, but it doesn't not fit. You know what I'm saying? Like, he said the same shit about John McCain, and then he didn't want to see John McCain's name on the back of his ship. Like, all that shit is kind of pretty haggard. Like, I've got a friend that's actually in the military that could verify that, like, that brought it up to me in a conversation. Like, he's a libertarian guy. He's not either way,
But he hated John McCain. There's a difference. I'm not saying what he said personally about John McCain was right. I'm saying that he had a personal vendetta against him, and he said some not nice things about him.
I didn't know that. I had no idea they had a vendetta against him. I had no idea.
Well,
I knew that he like guys that didn't get caught or whatever it was that he said, but I didn't know that he didn't like him. I had no idea.
He hated he hates John McCain, and I don't remember exactly what that stemmed from. John McCain didn't like Trump, and
I just thought that was a newer thing because of the I heard about the boat thing, but I had no idea that was like a long-term.
Yeah, no, this came out. This was
a duality kind of thing going on between them.
No, this was something he said. He said it like on the news, like he said it like in an interview, just off the cuff. Because I think what happened was, not to defend him for saying what he said, he got goaded, right? Like they said, like John McCain I'll sum it up. John McCain says, you know, you don't know what you're talking about. And so he's just like, look, so what he said specifically was like, look, John McCain, the only reason people think John McCain's a hero is because he got caught up. He got caught, right? And I kind of chalked this up to him trying to land a jab and just absolutely missing, or trying to not even a jab. He was trying to throw a haymaker, and
well, it's
just
also kind of how
misreading.
he talks too. Like he says things in a way that I don't think he really means to say it a certain way. I wouldn't be surprised if he was somewhere on the spectrum, to be completely honest with you. But I think that he misrepresents social situation, or misreads social situations, and I think misspeaks what he intends to come out a certain way. I have a friend who's on the spectrum, and this is the only reason I say that. I'm not comparing them. He'd probably pissed if he knew that. But they, a lot of times he says something a certain way that he means completely different. I'm like, dude, you should have worded that entirely different if you wanted somebody to know what you mean. And I think that there's a little bit of that there, whether it's just him or it's a cognitive thing. He sometimes, I think, just kind of goes off on these random things that makes it sound worse for him. And it's not necessarily that he means it that way, and I'm not defending him ever. But I can see that,
Yeah. Well, yeah, and not to defend his statement, because I did like John McCain. I do like John McCain. I know he's dead, but he was trying to land a body blow. He thought he did this off the cuff joke. It was a bad joke. I think even worse was just not. He's a guy. His biggest flaw, my personal biggest pet peeve, is that he doesn't just say, like, he could have easily said look, sorry, I was just trying to make a dumb joke. He should just apologize, but he doesn't want to apologize. He gets a bit petty. He's still petty. He still doesn't like John McCain. And
the man is dead.
But yeah, and he's still clearly is not a fan of his. So that is what it is, and people have their flaws. He's got plenty of them, but the idea that he got a fair shake from the media at any point, to me, when you think about the fact that they ran with this Russian collusion story, which turned out to be bonkers false. In fact, it looks like now like it was actually Hillary who was engaging with Russians, or at least trading in Russian disinformation to try to slander her candidate or her
but there's a long list of in this. So I agree with you to an extent, but I don't agree that it's all completely bullshit, because there's still a lot of business dealings between Russians and Ukraine and the Trump family that go back 35, 40 years. So, I mean, to say that it's all bullshit, that's not entirely true. Is there collusion? I don't know about that. That's a different story. Whether it was to get him elected, I don't think that there was any type of election collusion to get him elected. He worked with them to get elected. Do I think they have leverage and shit on him? Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know. I'd like to get your opinion. Do you think that he's beholden to Putin in any way? You think Putin has him by the balls?
I do not. I don't. I do think he might have a little too much respect for Putin than a sitting president probably should. But he also, by the way, his foreign policy, I give an A. I would give it like an A plus. Like he put everyone on their heels, right? So instead, part of me feels like it's all part of this sort of like master plan, like this sort of, they call it a mad the mad sort of, like, you just don't know. So he goes and kind of buddies up a bit to Putin, and then so NATO goes like, what the heck's going on, right? Now you see NATO paying in more than they were previously into their, you got more NATO allies adding to their defense budget. So adding in essentially to the collective defense budget within NATO. You know, it's not so far off of what Nixon did, right? When he opened up trade with China. When he looked at how do we defeat communism, he said, well, who hates or who is more at odds with the Russians than we are? Or who's more scarier to the Russians than we are? It was the Chinese. They were right on their border. The Chinese hated the Russians. They were both communists, but they hated each other. They had a lot of land disputes up in the Korean peninsula over there. And so that part of opening up trade relations with China was a grand plan to, I mean, we didn't love China. China had been our enemy up until that point. But the idea was we cozy up to this country in order to essentially destabilize Russia. Like if we're pals with China, Russia now is running out of, we're now, got the most influence in the world, right? They're running out of places to influence. There's an influence game. And so in a similar sense, I feel like when he started kind of buddying up with Putin, it was more of a play against the Middle East. It was like, look, the Middle East might hate America, but they hate Russia more. Russia sits right at their border.
That's true.
Russia's got no problem running in there with some pretty illegal tactics. And Trump, for everything people want to say about him, he certainly is no hawk, and he's the first president since Jimmy Carter not to get us in a foreign kerfuffle, right? So some foreign entanglement. So here's a guy, so he cozies up to Putin, and you do start seeing some of the dominoes topple a bit over in the Middle East. I believe it was a play to really put pressure on the Middle East, and that's where you're starting to see some peace treaty deals come in, and I'm jumping all over the place. I mean, there's a lot of complicated
no.
this,
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I will absolutely concede that on the Middle East between Israel and Palestinians or whatever, that they're talking more than they have in 40 years or longer than that, and actually ever, really. If you really want to go back, then you could say thousands of years if you really want to get into it. But the fact that Iran is creating nuclear weapons, I mean, they've got nuclear material. They're going to make nuclear weapons, especially since we trashed that fucking agreement with them. It's a really bad idea, in my opinion. And not because I agreed with the agreement. I actually was on Trump's side with that, but I don't think the right idea was tearing up the agreement because it just makes our word look like shit. But my problem is the direction that supposed to be being hard on China, the Chinese Communist Party, and I don't see that, actually. And I think that that's our biggest threat is the Chinese Communist Party. They are a major, major problem when it comes to humanitarian issues, and when it comes to the fact that they have every intention on taking over the entire world. Like, they are playing the long game. Like you said, Russia and them, not best buddies, right? And they both have a different, end game in play. And both of them are using COVID, I think, to their advantage in the fact that we're destabilized, and they can use that to their economic advantage. But China specifically, the thing that I'm concerned with is that you can see exactly what China's doing now. They moved on Hong Kong, the whole thing there. They're going to do the same thing in Taiwan, and they're going to do the same thing in the rest of the region. And it's not going to be good, I don't think, for anybody, because they've already made a law that anybody who's not, and this is a law where they can extradite you from anywhere in the world. Like, if you say something against the Chinese Communist Party right now, on this podcast, they can extradite you and have you arrested and put in jail in China just because they want to.
Yeah.
And they can't, because the United States are gonna be like, fuck you. But are they? Like, what happens if they go, no, you can have them? Like, because they are making a law now that if you do anything to piss off the Chinese Communist Party for any reason at all, and this was more for a Hong Kong thing, but they've made it abroad to anybody because Hong Kong deals with everyone in the world, that they can basically be extradited from wherever they live. And the Chinese Communist Party will make it their effort to have you removed, like that they could send bounty hunters into your country and remove people if they can do it successfully, at least. So that's some fucking sketchy shit.
Yeah.
And I'm
I'd
not
like
for. I'll put some information in the link about that. Actually, that I came across it watching this YouTube guy, and I was like, what? And I started digging in, and it's pretty fucking scary shit. But that's not a fault of Trump's. That's just something that I've seen that's been happening, and that could have been regardless of who took office, right? But I think that this whole like being tough on China thing is just like not working, obviously, with tariffs and stuff in regards to China. Say what you want about the rest of the world. The Middle East is definitely improving in some aspects. But yeah, I think China
It'd
is
be
just
interesting
going
to
to
see what
get their
happens. It'd
foothold.
be interesting to see what happens in a second term in terms of, because they could be waiting the tariffs out a bit. I mean, they did make some concessions. Obviously, were you a Sopranos fan? Did you ever watch that show?
I did watch some of it early on, but I never got past like the second season or so. So I mean, I like the show. I just never dug into it and finish it.
Tony's got a buddy in there that runs a restaurant. It's like a guy that he grew up with, and Tony and his crew are like the biggest proprietors of this restaurant, right? They are the number one customers there, but they don't always pay their bill. Sometimes they trash the place. Sometimes they drive other customers out, and him and so this guy that's Tony's friend, I forget his name, but him and his wife are really argumentative about whether Tony's an asset or whether he's a liability to the restaurant. And in a lot of ways, we're the restaurant and China is Tony, right? They're our biggest customer. If we cut them off tomorrow, we'd be in a lot of trouble. They'd be in a lot of trouble too. So there's never been,
because they don't have a place to eat.
We're going to a very interesting situation here with China. There's never been enemies like this that have been so codependent on each other, right? When we were major enemies with Russia, right, during the Cold War, we didn't rely on each other like for anything, right? We weren't ever codependent with, Japan, right? Pre, 1942. We weren't codependent with with Nazi Germany, right? We weren't really relying on them buying our goods and services, or for products. Like, I think one of the scariest things during COVID was when we all found out, I didn't know, that we don't even make our own medicine here anymore. That's made in China.
Right. And that all of that's going to be impacted and slowed down.
And that's a real scary thought. So that is, in terms of geopolitical threats, that is the biggest. Once we come out of COVID, part of it is that things are so fragile right now. Taking on China is a near impossibility. Our economy is too fragile. We come out, let's say we get the vaccine in January. So let's say, I think some predictions right now are saying about, early, late spring, we kind of come out of COVID, right? We start to see some sort of level of normalcy. Our economy by that point should hopefully have had, if we get a few things done in the Congress, we'll have some sort of floor, right, to build off of. The foundation still there. And maybe we're at a point then where we can take on China. And it's going to be the biggest geopolitical threat that the next administration faces. And I don't know that that Joe Biden is ready to take on that challenge. I don't know that he wants to. He seems pretty, I'm not going to spread conspiracy theories and stuff, but he seems fairly cozy with the Chinese, or has been in the past. Not only that, but he doesn't look like a guy kind of ready
You know,
for a
it's funny
fight.
you say
It is a
that.
fight.
I've been saying Joe Biden. I mean, Russia wants Trump to be president. China wants Joe Biden to be president.
Right. Yes. And I
think they
see
both are hacking the election accordingly.
they definitely get the trolls.
I definitely think that. I mean, no, well, listen, both of them have financial gain here. You know what I mean? They have
Major.
Russia has financial gain for Trump to stay in office, and they both admitted that they're interfering with the election. Like they both have admitted that they had some sort of play, whether it be direct hacking or it just be, people fucking with people on the internet that are hired by people that are hired by the Russian government. You know what I mean? Like it's not direct, but it's indirect. So it's the same fucking shit, but it's the same thing happened in China, and they both have the same goals and just different, by what's the word I'm looking for? Dichotomy? No, I don't know. They're very parallel of each other, mirrored in a way, I guess. But they both have a goal and they both have a lot to gain. And meanwhile, fucking we're dealing with all of this COVID, and the Pentagon releases shit that we've already known for a long time about UFOs. And it's like nobody bats an eye. The whole world sleeps. I mean, I don't necessarily think it's the whole world sleeps. I think that we've just been like really sheltered for a long time about it, and the rest of the world's kind of known. But that is some serious shit. Like I've always been a hard skeptic about this my entire life. About not that aliens could exist, but the likelihood that they will ever be able, the Drake equation thing, that they'll ever be able to get here while we exist, or will we be able to even come in contact at the same time, that one of us would die out first, or that one of us would, kill ourselves off before, whatever, before you could leave the solar system or whatever, intergalactic travel, communication. But what do you think about that, man? That's I mean,
I saw the story.
Politics,
I saw Joe Rogan talk about it. I've never been a guy that or I would probably say I haven't committed a lot of brain energy to aliens. It always seemed...
Whoa! I didn't say aliens. I said UFOs. Different thing.
Okay. All right.
Could be us from the future, man. I think that's more logical, actually. It would explain why they can't interfere, with us.
I was, my working theory about UFOs has always been that, there have been war games going on between us and countries that, have been not discussed. We probably have shot down Russian aircraft above our space, and they've probably done it to us.
No way. I know you're going that direction, but it's not human beings that are making these crafts. And if it is, it's us from the future. Like it's not any current. They defy physics completely. And that's the thing that the Pentagon's saying is like, this isn't, the Pentagon specifically said it's not another nation state actor. We don't know what it is or where it's from. As far as we know, it's paranormal in nature, but that's it.
I see. I haven't read too much.
So
into it
I mean,
myself.
I'm a skeptic. Like I'm like, no, it's not likely that it's aliens. Actually, it's more likely that it's us. But I don't know. I mean, that's it. I'm going to send you as much information as I can on this, because I think you really, really should dig in, man. You're one of those people that like give you enough data and information, it'll start to pique your interest, and some fucking weird shit. And the fact that CIA has opened all of this for like 12 years now, and you can just research it on their website. Like all of the UFO reports for the last 50 years are just declassified now. A lot of it's hard to understand, but
who knows? I'd be interested to look at it. It's kind of, and I don't want to make the comparison because this is stuff coming from the Pentagon. I know the New York Times reported on it. this is not. So when I say this, I'm not comparing this subject to that, but it just reminded me because, aliens, conspiracy theories. I had,
Yeah.
I spoke with a woman the other day who was hardcore QAnon. Like,
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. I'm so glad I know you couldn't be one of those people because your brain is far more intelligent than that. But holy shit, what was that like? I can't.
I went down the rabbit hole. At
You
one
dove
point,
right in, huh? Like, fuck it.
yeah, I was because she goes, "Have you ever heard of QAnon?" And I said, "No," which of course I have. I'm familiar with it, but I was very interested for her to sell me on it. And I felt like what it must feel like to go to a a Scientology center. It really felt like she was trying to get me kind of like in, right? Come in.
Into
Here's
the
our
fold,
website.
yeah.
Come in. And I'm like,
Come to Jesus moments.
yeah. And so I was very interested in that aspect of it. And then, she's very, very lovely lady, very earnest. And she was talking about, she told me about a Tesla tower in Texas that could power the entire United States if they would just turn it on. And about these, like, she kept referring to something called a med bed, which I still cannot quite figure out what she was talking about. But she said that, I mean, these people do love Trump. She said that Trump has all these scientific patents that he's ready to release, once he has a second term. These like med beds that can just like cure anything, and these like essentially like we're not going to have to rely on like fossil fuels anymore. A lot of stuff coming in the second term for the Trump administration. A lot of scientific patents that I was not aware that he held, which I find very interesting, because to believe that, I mean, the patent office, you can just go look up to see if he has any of these patents. This is not
Right.
It's not private information.
No. The secret patent office, the special one.
So she was telling,
it's down the hall from the other one, but it actually looks like a fucking mop closet. Turns out it is just a mop closet. No, I'm serious though. That could you? She's like, no, but seriously.
It was crazy stuff, crazy stuff. And she started talking about Tesla being associated with Trump, and I thought she was talking about Tesla, the company, but I think she was talking about like Nikolai Tesla having like met Trump's great grandfather or something, and that they have been connected like all these years.
Shit.
And so I don't know how much you know about QAnon.
I haven't heard that one. I've dug in a little bit. Like I've gotten in there. Like I've really wanted to know some about the QAnon stuff. And
my favorite part, and I just loved her cadence, the way she spoke, because she said, there are all these cues. Apparently, I'll tell you this after I tell you. So there are all these cues, and she says, I know there's more than 7, but there's less than 10. I said, wow, that's a really roundabout way to say 8 or 9.
It's a lot of extra steps.
And,
yeah,
it's a lot of extra steps to say like there's 8 or 9 cues. Like there's more than 7, but I know there's less than 10. And then the thing that did scare me, and did real, that is scary. And I know people are gonna like, how can you support the same person this supports? I'm like, well, because I'm not crazy. She.
Right.
I don't think she'll ever see this. I feel very bad. She was a very lovely lady, so I won't say crazy, but she told me that Trump's. Tell me if you've heard this. That Trump's tweets hide secret messages.
Nope.
Have you heard
Holy
this one?
Shit.
So if it's capitalized, the capitalized all means something. If he uses exclamation points, that means something, right? She was telling me like kind of like what they mean. Like apparently they have like a decoder for it. It was that thing, like, how like Boggle, you can like take letters and like mix it up and write words from it, right? So she said like if you look at his tweets, you can take anytime he capitalizes, you can take the capitalized letters, and I think there's like some software you can put it in, and it spits out like other sentences that could be coming from
it
those capitalized
randomizes
letters.
words based on letters you put into it. Awesome. There's an AI
So
software that does it.
I had to hold back from
Jeez.
laughing because I'm just picturing Trump on his his late nights, like 1 a.m, just punching in all caps, and somewhere someone's trying to decode. Oh, if he this is the one that did chuckle a little bit. If he misspells something, that's another code. And I was like,
Oh no.
oh no.
Oh
I was
no,
like,
no.
I was like, if he misspells something, it's probably because he was like
He misspelled
tweeting before, between wipes or something like that.
Yeah. And then the phone didn't autocorrect it for him. Like, what the fuck kind of phone is he? Is he not using an Android or an Apple phone? Like, what is he using for a phone that doesn't autocorrect his shit? Like, I see that all the time. I'm like, what? Like my phone has made me better at grammar.
Something.
Sorry about the delay too. I've noticed that there's a slight delay.
There's not a delay on my end.
Okay. I feel like I'm cutting you off frequently though because of on my end. So I'm like, oh shit, I hope I'm not cutting you off constantly.
Nah, I think conversations work best that way. I like to hear myself talk, so I should be cut off quite often, readily and often.
Yeah, but as this has been my challenge because I talk a lot. Also, it's good. It's good. It's a good we're a good mix here because it seems like it's been balanced because we both talk a lot, which is good because I kind of overpower things,
And not for nothing, but this is how political conversation should happen. We clearly do not agree with each other, but at no point did I think that you were attacking my very way of being because you don't want to vote for Trump.
I completely agree. I completely
where that
agree
came
with you.
from, I have no idea.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I haven't argued with someone before in the past, but lately, I think when I was a kid, when I was younger, I used to get into kind of fiery political arguments. And then at some point I just stopped caring about that. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. I was like, I don't know why I'm getting to these huge arguments.
I agree. I mean, I think that part of what makes us a better country is our ability to talk about things like civilized people.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is the problem, and I've said this a million times on the show. Of course, the listeners are going to roll their fucking eyes because I even in comments and stuff on the Apple thing, I've got shit about it because I always bring this up about how text is inert. This is and a hashtag. Text is inert, and it is because it doesn't convey sarcasm. It doesn't convey when someone's being angry or serious or happy or any of those things. They just see whatever mood they think you're in as condescension immediately, or whatever it is. They just interpret it however their brain interprets it, which is their own perspective and bias, versus what we're doing right now, which is conversing based on just normal conversation.
I also think too, I'm going to steal a line from Ben Shapiro, which I don't know if you listen to Ben Shapiro or not, but I'm going to plug actually to the 200 people that might be listening. That I love listening to Ben Shapiro, obviously. I'm going to steal a line from him where two things can be true at the same time. I think that's true. And so I think that's true for social media. And I got two opinions about it. I think it's been revolutionary, and I do love it. I keep up with friends that moved all around the world and family that's everywhere, and people that you would just have said bye to and just never thought about again. And you get updates. You get to it feels nice when someone kind of messages you and says hey, what's going on, or happy birthday, or how we connected. We would have never connected again without social media. And so okay, that's just So that aspect I think is great. The second thing that can also be true is that it is the devil. I think it has poisoned our minds, and there are times that I've gone too deep down the rabbit hole in social media. I refuse to go really past. Yeah, I refuse to really go past Facebook or the light amount Instagram I do. I try to turn it off more often. People should turn it off more often. I've not stalked, but like you go on there and you're just like, what's this person up to? And it makes you kind of feel bad. And then of course you have that obvious, the worst thing you can do, which is what I think a lot of people do, is they defriend everybody they disagree with, just friend everybody that they agree with, watch their news feeds, and just end up in an echo chamber of just absolute, narcissism. Really, just like, my point's right, and I'm going to find people who believe in my point, and we're going to talk about how our points are great and how everybody else's points are wrong.
I was just talking about this earlier, how I don't want to live in an echo chamber. This is why I talk to people who have different ideas, man. Absolutely.
And that is the poison of social media. And so I wonder if, we either die or adapt, right, as a species. And social media is going nowhere, and it's either going to kill us or we adapt to it. We figure out how to live with it. It's killing us right now. But I wonder if you talk about text being inert. I wonder if this Gen Z, or maybe even the generation behind them, if they start to find a way to communicate via text, because that's also not going anywhere. That they already started it with like the emoticons and stuff. All right, millennials kind of started with emoticons, and they definitely are better at reading sarcasm and they're better at reading into text messages than we are, certainly than I am.
Because it enhances a certain amount of awareness in them now, and that's heightening all of the emotional connection. This is why people are having such anxiety and stuff, is that if anything, their empathy is on overload now because of exactly what you're saying. Maybe. I don't know. It's just a hypothesis that's been bouncing around in my head that is similar to what you're saying there.
Yeah. So it's going to be a fight, but I refuse to give my children a cell phone, period. Like, not even in high school. Like, I'm going to try as hard as I can to keep them away from the cell phone up until that, once they're out of high school and in college, they can go get their own phone. It's what I did. Not that everything that I did was the perfect way to do it, but I feel like what a lot of youth are missing today, I communicate everyone with here and there with friends and stuff, but youth are hyper connected to each other, right? Their social circles are so important. And what they're missing today is, you're supposed to be able to leave your social circle. You're supposed to be able to go to your room and just kind of listen a little bit of music and just kind of disappear for a little bit. They're bringing their social circle with them everywhere they go. They have to be on point wherever they are. They always got to have something funny to say. They always got to be caring about what someone else is feeling at the moment. They always got to be kind of in the, ready and willing to, I'm speaking a little out of school because I'm not a Gen Z. I don't have a high schooler in my, but it seems to me, if they want to know why young people seem to be so anxious, it's because they never get away. I couldn't imagine if I couldn't imagine what high school would have been like if all the time I was just like hyper connected to my friends, like that would have been.
I wonder why
stressful.
Suicides tripled.
Right? Like, I couldn't imagine. I mean, we didn't even have Facebook in high school. I have no idea what it would have been like to have a mistake I made go up on Facebook. Like, we didn't have that. We didn't even have cell phone. Barely anybody had a cell phone. And not just that,
camera, on record forever, right?
Yeah. I couldn't imagine that. I remember one time in high school, I was running late and I actually fell up the stairs. I'd never done anything like that before. It was like a cartoon. I tripped on a step, fell down, kind of my momentum actually carried me up probably like another step, and my backpack came and hit me in the back of my head and slammed my head into the stair. And I always repeat, I think about that moment. I go like, imagine if someone had recorded that and just posted that up on Facebook.
Seriously.
It would have been
how many likes that would have got? You'd be famous. You'd be internet famous for sure. Yeah, dude, you're right. That's exactly it. Like the guy who jumped off of the top of the fucking vending machine that did the face plant into the dirt there when he, I don't know if you've ever seen that. It did backflip off of the vending machine. Oh my god, I'll send it to you. It's fucking
okay.
It's got
No,
a
I don't
ton
think
of
I've seen
likes,
that
but
one.
it's ridiculous. He just basically eats shit, dude. Fucking face first right into the fucking ground. No full flip at all. Just a big miss.
Yeah, I mean, it's not all bad. I do love all this connectivity and social media and stuff, but it's sort of like we just found like chocolate chip cookies for the first time. We're just gorging on them, and at some point we're either going to get diabetes or we got to stop eating so many chocolate chip cookies.
That's it. You're right, man. Yeah, moderation's the key. Oh fuck, that's hilarious. That's a perfect analogy, by the way. That is great. I'm using that.
Thank you.
Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on. This has been a really awesome podcast. This episode has been great. I'm glad that these episodes are going smoother than I had hoped. I mean, smoother than I had hoped, actually. So it's better than I had hoped for. I thought it was going to be a little bit more choppy for me because of things like lag or just the fact that I'm not in the room talking to somebody. But
I don't know about you. I mean, I've been doing a lot of Zoom. I run. I'm a scout leader for my son's Cub Scouts, and of course I work from home. So I do a lot of Zoom, and this is starting to feel all too natural. Just like talking to you like you're in the room.
Yeah. Right. Well, so I mean, I'm adapting. That's part of the reason why we're doing this on YouTube. And I uploaded 23 old episodes with a stock photo. Is that like, we need to be able to adapt to this, the new COVID landscape. Right. I mean, everything is adapt to it, and we're a podcast. Like podcasts are supposed to be like this format originally, and we were all like, comfortable sitting in a room having people like come to an actual physical location. We actually had a couple of people go, so is it supposed to be like, Zoom? I'm like, no, you're coming to a physical location wearing headphones and we'll all talk for, an hour or so, which is a lot harder than doing this, actually getting somebody to, do a Zoom interview. Who would have thought is easier than trying to get somebody to, come to your house, which is kind of sketchy too for some people if they've never met you before. Like, I don't know about that, but it's gone.
I'd be really interested to see.
Well,
I'd be really interested to see the statistics on your video. I'd be surprised if anyone got to this point. You see people drop off usually after about usually within, I believe, like the first 5 minutes, I think is where you get your most. And then people will hang on till the end. But I'd be interested to see, I was a little nervous how our conversation started. I was a little nervous how our conversation started because, and I thought we made a lot, we had an interesting conversation about COVID, but are people sick of hearing about COVID? Like when we were talking about, are people tuning out right now? Are they thinking like
it could go both ways, right? So because it's weird because like, the episodes of YouTube, I have no idea how it's going to turn out. YouTube's going to give us some really good insight to people who are newer listeners that are catching us on YouTube or who are listening. For how long are they listening? Is it all the way through? Like I get some of those analytics on our RSS server, which goes to Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeart Music, like just the iHeart Radio, the whole long list of them, like 50 of them that we're set up to. And those analytics all tie into how many downloads, how many people listen, how many listeners, where in the world, so on and so forth. But they don't connect to YouTube. So the downside of that is like YouTube's going to be nice, but it's going to be all new formats because everything we did before was only audio, whereas now we're doing the video format as well. Now this will be the third episode. with Zoom. And I think that, the nice thing about it is that, what people liked is that we had people for a while be like, when are you guys gonna make another episode? Like, why'd you guys just stop? Because we tried to keep going, and then COVID happened, and I had pancreatitis, was in the hospital, like off and on for like a month and a half, just randomly.
So I remember seeing that on Facebook.
Oh, it was shit, man. It was awful. It was right in the middle of COVID, right when it started too. So it was like,
yeah, you were in the hospital with your mask on.
Like, oh, it's just terrible. Just sucked to be there because I couldn't, Gavin couldn't be there. I had to figure out a way that, he could, stay with family, so on and so forth. But anyway, I guess where I'm getting at is that adapting to this new format's been a little nerve-wracking. So I'm glad that it's gone as smoothly, and I can't thank you enough for coming on today, for sure.
Yeah,
I will have to do this again too.
Yeah, definitely. I could have talked to you all night. We'll have to catch up outside of this too.
Oh, absolutely. Grab some food, and grab a coffee or beer or something, and get a hold of Kyle and Eric and everybody. I haven't talked to them in forever, so it'd be really great to get together and talk. Tell them to watch this this episode. I think this has been a very productive episode for people like listening from the political spectrums, because there's too much of the back and forth arguing and not enough of this. And I think that it just shows that my best friend that passed away right before Kayla was a heavy Trump supporter. He was a guitarist in Unrest in Transit, real strong Trump supporter. And we always, we give each other shit all the time, but we respected each other's perspective because we knew that we're both good people. You know what I mean? Like, who you vote for doesn't fucking define you as a person. We can agree on certain things and disagree on other things, and that's where we got to get back to. And unfortunately, the electronic things does a lot of good. The electronic, devices and technology does a lot of good things like this, where we can bridge that. But we need to be doing more of this and less of this, in my opinion. But I thank you for your time, and especially staying up so late doing this with me, and as always, we'll
if I wasn't doing this, I'd probably be playing Magic. Yeah, we'll do it soon.
Oh, dude, we need to talk about Magic. Holy shit. So that's a whole other episode, dude. We should get together. I'm pretty trashy casual blue player, but we should definitely we should be playing.
Do you have a draft?
I don't really anymore because you're talking about like new standard draft. Yeah, I haven't played any of the new standard dynamics, so I'm like Zendikar was like the last thing I played. I think it's been a while. Yeah. I'm out of the loop.
Back to Zendikar.
Yeah. Gavin and I we play casual decks, and I've got like a clash deck and stuff that we play and whatnot, but I'm not super heavy in it, but it's fun. And that's exactly, I love playing the game. It's been helping him with his math too, so that's the other really great thing about Magic, nerding out.
Not that you guys just so I don't know if it's gonna come up in there.
That's the cardboard crack, Magic. My friend. Cardboard crack. Absolutely. Holy shit. We should have talked about that earlier in the episode too. But
I know.
We'll have to get together and dude, I've even heard they do like Zoom like Magic games and shit. That's bananas.
Dude, we should do that as a podcast. We could play Magic and just talk.
Dude, that would be great. I think that would be a blast. Let's get together and talk about that. That sounds good, man. All right, man. Thanks again for coming on and doing this. And as always, to the listeners, thank you for tuning in with us as always, and for listening so consistently. Even on the last couple of episodes, I saw on the Buzzsprout feedback. So again, thank you all very much. And thank you for coming on the show, Steve. And as always, abstract here, abstract there.
conditions.